So today is VJ Day, the anniversary of the end of the war in the Pacific and the Southeast, and the final act of the Second World War. I'm here in Silvertown, North Woolwich, Royal British Legion, as we mark the 80th anniversary. It's the very final act, and often it gets overlooked by the celebrations around VE Day and the end of the war in Europe, but huge numbers of people served and fought in the Far East, and it's important we remember them. And an example of that is a guy called Jack Hull, who was born in a small town in South Bedfordshire in the early 1920s, called up to do his war service, joined his local regiment, the Hertfordshire and Bedfordshire Regiment. And after a lot of service going around the country guarding places, was put on a ship in Liverpool and sent to what they thought was the Middle East, diverted en route via the Caribbean and South Africa, because Pearl Harbor had happened just before, and they were sent to the Far East. They stopped in India for a bit of 2 weeks training to get used to the climate and fighting in that part of the world. When they arrived in Singapore, straight into the front line, in time for the surrender of Singapore, which over 80,000 people in what's the biggest surrender of the British Army, where huge numbers of British, Australian and New Zealand and Indian soldiers surrendered and were taken prisoner for the rest of the war. He, like many others, was then marched up into Thailand, imprisoned in really brutal conditions, and put to work building the Burma Railway. And that's where he ended his life, because he died in 1943, aged 23 years old, of beriberi, a horrible disease that is caused by vitamin B deficiency, which is easily prevented, but in the conditions of the prisoner of war camps was a common killer. And I know about Jack Hull because he was my great uncle. He was the youngest brother of my mum's father, and it affected his family. So when he left for war, they never saw him again, but never saw him again in any death, because he's buried in a Commonwealth War Graves cemetery in Thailand. It's well looked after. It was the Commonwealth War Graves Commission doing a fantastic job looking after it. But like so many working class families, they never had the resources to go abroad. They were the kind of people who went abroad when you did your war service. So in the literal sense, they never saw him alive, and no one's ever visited it in death. So on this VJ Day, we remember all those who served, all those who were killed, all those injured, and all those other civilians and families who were left behind. And thank them, everyone who served, everyone who gave their sacrifice, and remember them 80 years on.